Hello YouTube, this is Justin from Sepia. Guys, welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to continue where we left off in the last tutorial. If you remember in the last tutorial, I introduced the how to add themes and how to change the widget themes to the FLTK image viewer. And if you want to see how I did that, watch my last tutorial because I go in detail how to do that. But in this tutorial, I'm going to be working with filters and I'm going to be applying filters to these images. We did this here. You're going to see, let's do grayscale and let's do it 9. And there you go. You see how easy it is. We go back to the preview image. So you see the difference. Now let's apply another filter. Which one should I? Let's do hue and apply, and you get the hue filter. And for those of you that are not familiar with the hue filter, this is the circle or the RGB color wheel, and it's red, green, blue. So something in between the two, the complementary colors, or where are they? Primary color? I always get them confused, but you know what I'm talking about. When two have one, red and yellow becomes orange, yellow and green becomes spring green, green and cyan turquoise, and so on, all the way around. As you can see, red is going down, and then here's only 125, here's 0, and then green starts going down, and then it's gone. So now it's all blue, and then it goes back to red. So that's where that is coming from, just in case. That's how this conversion. I'll show you how we get there, and for that we're gonna need. Oh, by the way, these are images of proteins, um, and I'm going to show you how to get rid of that text. Um, because for some applications you might want just the image without the text. I'll show you how to do that. But that I will do that at the end of the tutorial. Let's get into the code now. You're going to see a pattern between all of these filters. They all use very similar, so I'm not going to, it's going to become repetitive because we're going to be using the same thing, so I'm not going to go over all of them because they're basically working the same. For example, if I show you Sepia, um, you can see that it's almost the same thing going on between Grayscale and Sepia. So there's not much. I don't want to become repetitive over and over. There's very few differences. You have the code. You can go back and you can see the math, what kind of weights they're using for the conversion and all that. So I'm not going to, because it's just going to become repetitive. I'll go over this one in detail so you know what's going on, and then you apply the same logic to the other ones. So here, we're bringing the image buffer and RGBA from the image crate. We're bringing filter error for error handling. Image filter, we're going to be using this because this guy is going to be using all of that. So this is where the struct is being created with a field of floating point of 32. This is the implementation block of where basically where the constructor creates a no grayscale filter instance. That's what's happening. So it's going to have a clamp of 0 to 1. That's just the factor that it has to be within that. And that's what you see here when we do that's in that intensity, that's where it's coming from. Okay, so it's right there, intensity. Here, we're just doing the RGBA. We've been doing that all along. The image filter is defining the behavior. This is a reference to the image, a mutable reference to the image buffer because we're going to be manipulating the pixels and it's going to give you the result. This is what's going on here, RGB, but remember it's RGBA, so there's an alpha for the transparency, but we're only applying it to the RGB we're leaving alpha channel unchanged. Most of the filters for in this one, alpha will be unchanged. When we get into more advanced filters, probably in the next tutorial, we'll deal with alpha. But here is these are the weights that make a grayscale. So you need this factor, weight, or some people call it weight, some people call it factors. If you apply that to red, if you apply that to green, if you apply that to blue, it will give you the grayscale. Here is the when you're blending between the original and the grayscale based on intensity, this intensity that you included there, and it's going to give you a grayscale, what you're looking for. That's what's happening there. And for example, sepia, everything is the same, everything is the same. The only thing that changes is how they're applying the factors, the weights, the factor weights to each one, and is getting a minimum from the white. So that's they're extracting it that way, and then they're blending it in a different way, but the logic is the same for all of them. So what are we going to do? Let's do threshold. Threshold uses no, threshold uses the same thing also. It's basically the same thing. I wanted to show you a different one that uses something different. Also, you can see they're all very familiar. It's almost the same. Let's go more into the dialog. This is more interesting. The dialog is when we go into the dialog, this is when let's just start from the beginning. When you do a filter, you choose, let's say, threshold. It brings this dialog box, this modal, okay? This modal, once you, like I said before, you cannot do anything to this while this is open. So this modal is being created right here, right there. So what we're doing here, let's go back. We're importing all of this stuff from FLTK for the UI, the window, the button, float input, because we're going to be using the numeric input from the user and making the calculations. The frame, what is going to display, and the pack is what is well, I'll show you. Here's the reference counting and mutable share state, all that good stuff. You've seen it before. Here we're creating the frame reference to the state, which is the one right here, and then the string for the filter type because it's a string. Here, this opening the dialog is a window, and it's going to create a 400 by 300, and this is kind of, think of this as the placeholder that is going to contain whatever filter type you decide. So we don't know it's going to be dynamically changing. For example, right now it's threshold, right? But if I change it and I go, instead of threshold, I go to sepia, all of a sudden it's going to say apply sepia filter. And it says apply sepia filter. And same thing for here, adjusting sepia, and it will change dynamically depending on what the label is and format. This is the position. This is the pack. Uh, that is the spacing. And what else? Buttons. Where are the buttons? Here they are. Cancel and apply. This is, remember, when you're doing buttons, actually, let me show you this. When you're doing buttons, if you ever have questions about, this is C++, but it's basically, we're using FLTK RS, which is a binding of this guy. So basically, you're going to see when, and if you ever have any questions, you can go here and refer to it. If you don't know what something is, like for example, if you say to yourself, I don't know what this number is, what this number is, what this number, all you need to do is go back to the documentation and it will tell you. This is position, size, actually, position, size, label. So you have the X and the Y, they're integers. Uh, the width and height, that's the size of the frame or the button or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And the label is going to be a char or car, some people call it. So that's what that is. That's where that's coming from. Those numbers mean. So that's all it is. This is the end of the pack, the end of what's happening here, as you can see. And now we've seen all of these before. This is where the cloning and the dialogues, depending on the input from the user, it calls back the buttons, it calls back all of this other stuff, right? Here, parse and validate the input. It's just parsing whatever the input from the user. And here we applying the clamps is for brightness is gonna be the only one with negative value, so it's gonna be -1 to 1. 0 will be in the middle. For example, this is what I'm talking about. If you open brightness and you go to brightness, you're gonna see that is -1, 0, but 0 is the one in the middle, and then 1.0. So that's what I'm talking about. Here, contrast and saturation is using 0 to 2. Hue is the only one using the circle, the RGB circle that I show you is using degrees. So it's 0 to 360. And then whatever left is going to use whatever is left. And this is what's happening here. Here is where the grayscale is the handlers is applying the handler for handle apply grayscale, apply sepia, apply brightness, apply contrast, and so on. These are all the handlers that are this guy right there. And for all of them, if you don't, it says unknown, it gives you the error handling and it will complain. This is when the app opens, waiting for input because right now it's waiting, right? So it's a loop. It's a while loop just running until I close it or I do something and then it ends. And that's basically what's happening with the dialog. With the handlers, like I mentioned, this is very similar. We're bringing from the basic module is this basic module. These are all the stuff that we're bringing from there. All the filters are there. These are the particular handlers for each one. And they're all, it's going to be repetitive because they're basically doing the same thing again. You seeing the same pattern again is going to be, we saw that before when we were doing the watermark and we were doing the removal tool and how to, this is the same programming logic that you saw in that tutorial. So basically it's the same, it's borrowing and cloning and redrawing and all of that good stuff that we did in the dragging, when we were dragging the cropping tool. Handle apply sepia, this is for grayscale. But now we're talking about sepia, then this is for brightness. And you can see it's the same thing. So it becomes really repetitive. Contrast filter, saturation filter, threshold, hue, and then toggle preview. That all is doing is when you do this, when you do the toggle preview, that's what that's happening. You go back to the other one. If you, let's say you apply a filter, Sepia, apply, right? You apply the filter, you want to go back to the original image, you just hit it and it brings you back. You notice that this kind of gets smaller. It's because there's a zoom changing. That's where that's happening because there's a current zoom and it's taking the state, the filter state, but it's also taking the zoom. And that's what all of that stuff is going right here. And then if it's not active anymore, it will reload the original image when disabling the preview. But if you preview is active, then it will if the original is active, it will load whatever you chose, okay, whatever you're working on. That's what it's going back and forth here and here. And basically, that is the handler. And what else? The other stuff, as you can see, watermark state and the filter state. If you look at watermark state, we did that in the when we were doing watermarks. Filter state is going to be very similar. It's going to be, it's basically almost the same because same thing. We're going to be bringing image full tick, the image buffer, the image crate, error handling. Here, the implementation block of the is creating the instance with the error and all of that good stuff. What else? Image conversion between full tick and image crate formats. Remember, they have to play nice with each other because they're going back to what full tick does well and then what image crate does well. There are certain things that they're stronger on. This is basically the implementation block of the filter state struct. It's creating a new instance of the filter state. Here is applying the filter to the image and return the result. Converting image buffer, convert the full tick image to image buffer, and here it brings it back from, no, here. It goes from buffer to full tick. This one is from full tick to buffer. This one is from buffer to full tick. But it's basically the same thing as you can see. I mean, of course, the data changes pixels because it's the RGB data. And these are all the toggle preview. Is the preview is active? Just is it yes, no? What the option is? What what filter you chose? Option again. What filter you need to set? Get a getter and a setter. And going default trade and allow creating a new instance of filter state with default values, whatever the default is that you chose at the very beginning. And that's what we did in the last one. But that's all good. So I wanted to show you, I told you that I wanted to show you this at the end. So let's do this. There's a reason why I chose this image uh, because I'm going to take care of that text. And by doing that, we're going to do we're going to first of all use the eraser tool that we use, and it's telling me that starting watermark tool removable tool. So all you need to do, if you remember, is click and drag, just like we're doing with the crop tool. You do it again, and look how easy it is to get rid of text. And I show you how to do this in in the other tutorial. You get rid of text little by little. You have to be a little bit careful. And here, this is challenging because you have to kind of get it without affecting the protein. But you can see that if you're careful, and if you mess up, you always can go back to the toggle and start over again. But it does a pretty good job, I must say. And let's do that one. Let's do that one. And let's clean it up a little bit. Oops, I got a little bit off. But you see what I'm saying. This is just proof of concept so you understand why this tool can be so handy. Look at that. And now we have a filter that we can see whether we did like you're gonna see this. You're gonna see the imperfection that I was not as good as I thought. So let's say that you want to, first of all, let's save this. Let's save it as, let's save it as binary price because I'm going to use threshold. Replace. And now, actually, I should have called that clean. I have an old one that is clean, so we'll just use that one. That's fine. Because it's the clean version. Now I'm going to binarize it. So now I do. Um, let's open it. Actually, let's open the clean one. It's this one because I did that. The same thing. So now I binarize it with the threshold. And now let's do 9 just to see just the white stuff. Then you see it, and you see it's pretty clean, right? You say, whoa, I did a pretty good job because the only thing that I can see is, where is it? Structural biology, the original is this one. Oops, yeah. And you say to yourself, wow, I did a pretty good job. But, it's all clean. The only thing that I see here is the white, those molecules right there. But then if you change the clamp on the threshold and you go to a lower, let's from 0.9 you go to 0.5, let's say, let's leave it at that. Actually, we'll do let's toggle back the original. Let's do this one. Okay, and now we apply the filter. Then we do threshold and then 0.5, apply. All of a sudden you start seeing things that you miss, right? Now you're seeing that there is something there that you couldn't see it before. And that's what I'm saying, that these filters can be very, very handy for this type of stuff when you're looking for detection. That's why we use these filters all the time to binarize the images to make them 0 or 1, black or white, 0 to or 255. This is the importance when you're doing certain applications that it makes our life a lot easier. And that's why I wanted to give you that example, and that's why I chose that image. But this is the end of this tutorial. If you like this tutorial, click the like box, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time with another tutorial. Take care.